Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sonic Talk, recording today on Wednesday, the 29th of March, 2017. This week, actually, we're having a week off next week because we're going to Frankfurt. Frankfurt MusikMesse is on next week. We go to Germany on Monday, and we'll be in the country eating sausages and drinking beer and working hard to bring you all the latest news from Frankfurt MusikMesse, so do stay tuned for that. That's the thing I forgot to do. Forgot to record the show. No, it's all right. I've got there. There we go. We're all good. So, yes, anyway, thank you to our sponsors. Hello to everybody in the internet. Thank you to YouTube. Those of you watching via YouTube in the chat room there, and also via sonicstate.com/live, where we've got our own little IRC channel. I haven't figured out how to squirt them together and make it all viewable in one window and have everybody talking and everything, but I'm afraid I can't do that. So I want to say thank you very much to our show sponsors, competition sponsors. Isotope will be giving away a copy of Neutron a little bit later in the show, so stay tuned. What is the show about? This is Sonic Talk. We're all about music technology, music production, software, hardware, synthesizers, making records, playing live, all of the things and the associated around making music. So let's say hello to our guests. We'll start over here with Mr. Gaz Williams over there in Bristol. GazWilliams.me, producer, bass player, music technologist. Been in rehearsals a lot recently, so we haven't seen much of you.
Yeah, just starting a tour on Saturday in Leeds with the Charlotte Church Late Night Pop Dungeon.
Excellent. I saw a little trailer on YouTube or Facebook, which was really good fun.
Oh, that. Yeah, I mean, that was literally made up on the spot. Just it was cool. Just a little improvised song singing about the tour dates. But this is great. We've got a brand new set that we're going to be doing on Saturday with loads of surprises in there. From a musician point of view, it's about as good a gig as possible for me because I just get to play in every style, from like metal, R&B, hip hop, jazz, classical, prog. I make sure there's prog in there.
Of course. Country? Western?
A little bit. Not directly, but it's just a kind of really weird selection of songs. Well, I say weird. Unexpected is a better term, really. So Charlotte was a very well-known singer,
child prodigy,
prodigy,
classical singer.
Yeah. And there is elements of that still.
Well, it's funny when you hear her because occasionally she'll belt out one of those notes that you know that she could do, because the rest of the time she's singing in a kind of more of a pop and soul style, but she can really let rip one of those full operatic kind of.
And she could really let rip as well.
Yeah. Both.
It's the sort of thing you discover in rehearsals.
Right. Moving on swiftly. That chuckle you heard there was Dave Spears, g4software.com. Makes of fine software instruments and collector of fine hardware instruments. Right there behind him. That's I think that's the OB8 voice. That's the new Model D, is it?
Yes, the old ones.
And various other things behind you. You can tell they're old because the keyboards are all sort of yellowy. Certainly to your left, anyway.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Mind you, that Tron's new.
Okay.
It's a new one.
How are you, Dave? Are you well?
I'm all right, yes. I've got something to plug. Hang on. 50% off the Tron libraries. Oh, and this isn't a plug. How about that for a bit of infamy? Going to a gig with Ty and being recognised backstage after the show.
Yeah, by some young
Three
people.
Youngsters. Yeah, I thought your comment was brilliant, and they've got hair too. Result.
Woo!
But yes, that was kind of odd.
It's nice when that happens.
Standing quite near the star turn, and you're kind of always acutely aware of people coming up and talking to him, and he was kind of rubbing my head, doing things that he knows annoys me. And these lads came up, and I kind of stood to one side, and then they started talking to Ty and said, "Oh, can we take your photograph, please? Because we watched Sonic Talk and we really like it."
Actually, did they get Carl to take the photo for them? With you?
No.
That would have been the best.
I've had that exact thing happen.
It's quite trippy. It really did throw me, I have to say. In fact, I turned around and I said, the only way you can do this is if I can take a photograph of you guys to send to Nick to show him that it really happened, and B, young people listen to the show.
Some apparently they do once in a while. There you go. You get your obligatory screenshot. M-Tron Pro expansion pack sale, 50% off. GeForceSoftware.com, and there's a buy button right there. Someone's been doing some design work on around your place. You got to get that stuff in. Excellent. Looks very nice.
Thank you very much.
Dave, thank you for joining us. And finally, we've got Mr. Marc Tinley from Sonicstate in Glastonbury, where he runs. I have actually got his website up as well. Sonicstate.
Excellent.
There you go. Look, and you got a prop. There you go. Sonos. Is it Magus? Mega. Oh, I always get this wrong.
I don't bloody know. Somebody who
doesn't matter.
Speak Latin knows, and I don't. So
I won't
claim to know that.
How are you, Mark? It's been a while since we've seen you.
It has. I've been busy being a shopkeeper, which is it's a busy job. Yeah, indeed. But my partner's away in Milton Keynes interviewing people today, so I've got childcare and all that. So that means I can be here as well, which is brilliant. So
excellent. It has been a while.
Yes, indeed.
As if by magic, the shopkeeper suddenly appeared. I get to say. Excellent.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, is an old Mr. Ben line, which is a sort of probably from our formative years. That is about as obscure. Well, it probably will get much more obscure. Actually, I don't know what on earth I'm thinking. Of course, it will be much more obscure. But how about this, eh? These are new Optigan discs. Well, not new, but old demos by a guy called Johnny Largo that were uploaded by P. Hicks, who is the sort of, seems by default, the sort of curator of all things Optigan. I really like that one. There's the Cha Cha Cha. And there was another one that I really liked as well. Together with all that noise. Now, where has it gone? Here and Now, Latin Fever, Majestic Pipe Organ. It wasn't that one. This one. There's a sort of funky soul type one. These are all Optigan sound sets, I believe. And I started looking into this. I mean, obviously, I know, Dave, have you got an Optigan?
Yep.
Explain to the listeners what an Optigan actually is, just to sort of, in clear terms.
It's an organ which works via an optical readout head. So it's like a record, but it's a flexible record. And if you look really carefully, you can see the waveforms in there, and they're printed onto this thing, and it's got loads of accompaniment rhythms, and then you can kind of play along with the organ or flute or the wobbly marimba sound in the right hand. It was made by Mattel, and they have airbrushed it out of their history because I don't think it did very well. It's I think it was built on a budget of about $3.95, so
here we go.
They don't genuinely last.
Funnily enough, on Optigan.com, there's only it's taken me quite a while to find an actual picture of it. It does look like your classic kind of Bon Tempi style organ, doesn't it? It's got that kind of thing going on.
Ours is amazing. In fact, I've been obsessed by these for years, and really wanted to record the discs, and but the chances of finding one in the UK were somewhere between 0 and 0. And then I spoke to Scanner, Robin Rimbaud, who put me in touch with the guys from Coil who had one. So we spoke to them, and then we went down and spent a couple of days recording in their studio there. And then through various events, one of them died, and then the other, I think just after the John Balance died, Sleazy decided to auction off a load of their gear. So we ended up with their Optigan at the end of the day as well. And I got to say, P. Hicks is a legend, and it was a real... In fact, it's weird. We bought... So he kind of reissues discs and makes new discs for things like the Orchestron, which is basically the same technology, but you haven't got the cheesy rhythms. But he remanufactures these things, and he is the authority on it. And we'd spoken, and we'd bought stuff off of him over the years. And then remember when Tara Bush did that gig at Royal Festival Hall, the Purcell Rooms,
right?
That we lent her the synths for.
Yes, vaguely remember that.
Chris and I and Andy Schuso did the sound for it. We were sat in this kind of pizza place along the South Bank, and Pete Hicks sort of walked past. And I was like, dude, that's Pete Hicks. How weird is that? And he's from like San Diego. Anyway, it turned out he had come over for the Kate Bush gigs at the time. and had decided also to go to the Tara gig. So it was brilliant finally meeting him, because he should have, when he flew into the UK, he should have be given a sort of honorary OBE or something like that he could walk around with.
Oh, should obviously stand for Optigan.
Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, I've been looking around with this, and there's actually a disc here. They're manufacturing new discs for the Optigan as well, which is Minimalism, which features Tara Bush, and there are some other ones. But the interesting part of this was this guy, what's his name? Johnny Largo. That was his stage name, and he was introduced to the Optigan in 1971. And there's a whole sort of load of demonstrations that P has put up online that he did in 72. And they're really noisy, and they still manufacture the actual disc, and it looks like an insanely complicated process. I don't know if it's even viable. He does.
Yeah, in limited runs. And actually, if you want certain discs, on eBay they go for a fortune and stuff like that. We did it, obviously we've got an Optigan pack for the Entron Pro, which is on 50%. But because the samples always kind of re-trigger from the downbeat, whereas the Optigan, it was brilliant actually. There was kind of little red. So the light would shine through, and there were four. The disc, when you put it in, had four little cutouts in that gave you your beats, and the red one had a little bit of red cellophane over it, so that was the downbeat, and that then came up to the front panel where you would see this light kind of flicking.
Oh, so it would give you
a 2, 3, 4 red. Well, of course, the discs continually rotate on the original, so you can choose where to bring each rhythm in. They don't re-trigger from from bar one, as it were.
Oh God, that's amazing, isn't it? I know, Gaz. I mean, you have famously been into prog. I mean, the Mellotron has been the kind of was the starting point for a lot of the kind of playback instruments. Have you ever come across anybody using Optigan live? I mean, that would be I don't wonder if it would stand up to the rigors of the road.
Well, you'd have to be very careful with the album made out of the flimsiest materials, aren't they? Oh, they're gorgeous things though, aren't they? Not real one live, no, but it is remarkable just how there's a theory, isn't there, about how modulation just kind of draws the brain, is attracted, it creates something that's an attractive force. So the fact that there's such a wobbly sound, I think it does, much in the way that reversed sounds just sort of suck you in strange ways. This kind of wobbly sound, I feel it's something that is, I always find an Opticon is such a massive joy giver. Everyone just laughs and loves it. They just love it unconditionally.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, because it's almost like magic. I don't know, Mark, have you ever actually played one or seen one in the flesh?
A real one?
No. A real one?
Not a real one, no. But Mattel did also make some other very interesting musical instruments, didn't they? Can anyone remember the Mattel Synsonic drum machine?
Oh, I'm going to have to look that up.
So if you couldn't afford a Simmons, they made this box. It looked like about the size of a biscuit tin with 4 grey pads on it. And it did a kick, a snare, a hat, I think, and a tom. But then you could
there we go.
It to
$59 on eBay at the moment.
So I remember in 1982, maybe, doing demos with that, and you could basically program a very simple beat and then play boo 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 over the top of it.
I saw it.
If you couldn't afford a Simmons kit, that thing actually sounds better than you would expect. It's got that kind of 80s synth drum sound. So.
Excellent. Have you you're familiar with the device?
It was just to be honest, it was on Swap Shop when I was a kid. It's like a kind of Saturday morning. And I always wanted one, and I never, ever found one. I think that's the thing that was the first piece of music technology I'd ever seen. That thing was. I always wanted one.
Well, I have to say, the prices on eBay seem very reasonable. They're under $100. There seem to be a lot of them, which must mean that they're actually quite durable. Because you wouldn't expect something that's been hit to be still around, but indeed here they are. A lot of them get circuit bent as well, I believe.
I was going to say it's a good platform for circuit bending. You can do some weird stuff with it.
I'm just trying to think of sorry.
You're saying about live, using them live?
Optigan, yeah. Or Synsonic.
I got a great story. When we were doing the pack, I was talking to Chad Blake, who has an immaculate, I think he's got a couple, that are all immaculate, all the discs, all immaculate. He told me this amazing story about Tom Waits used one on a recording and then wanted to take it out on the road, the real instrument. So Chad kind of lined everything up, made sure it was all working perfectly. And he said he's such a stickler for, you have to treat the discs in a certain way because they're reasonably fragile, that he had lined the discs up inside the sleeves in a certain way so that he knew, which ones would get used and which ones didn't. Anyway, it was returned. And he looked at the discs in the sleeve and was like, these haven't even been removed. So he called him up and said, Tom, was everything okay on the tour? He said, yeah, it was fantastic. And he said, well, I just noticed that, it appears you kind of didn't use any of the stuff. He said, no, man, I just like the sound of the machine whirring.
Indeed it does. Were there any? There must have been some modifications because you can hear all those recordings. There's lots of rumble and kind of... I mean, could they be hi-fied or modified to sound better?
They probably could, yeah, but it's a weird instrument because as soon as you start tinkering, things sort of disintegrate in your hands. So it's like, whoa, leave it to the specialists. Don't delve too much. We had a thing where there's a volume pedal, and it's the way it's connected to the amp is just the internal amp is just amazing. It really is like a kind of piece of string. And that had broken, and it was like, oh, hang on, we've got to feed this through. And literally everything you touch was like, it's kind of made out of plastic and corrugated cardboard.
Wow, yeah, you got to be careful with that.
So it's like white Bakelite, isn't it? That weird kind of crumbly white Bakelite.
Oh wow, the sort of stuff that the Polyvox switches are made out of.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who's that kind of quirky English pop singer girl. She used it on Beck have used it, and oh god, I can't remember her name. Gaz. Simon Gogoley produced that album. Oh god, what's her name?
Don't know. Have to pass on that.
Hang on. I'm going to look this up.
Yeah, you have to look it up and then interject at some point in the future. But anyway, check them out. I mean, what's so beautiful about them is there's just this quality of sound. And yes, they're really grungy and kind of noisy, but there's a sort of... I guess it's because all of the stuff would have been recorded originally in kind of old school classic studios with sort of proper engineers, sort of before pop music really kind of became as much of an art form, and it was more sort of closed off to your sort of boffins in brown coats, and clipboards and stuff. And it captured. I guess the same thing was true of the Mellotron as well, wasn't it?
Paloma Faith.
Paloma Faith. There we go. Thank you.
I've got a slight sideways one then, because I was thinking about this the other day. A chap has brought these big aluminium tube things into my shop, and you hit them and they make tones basically. And I was thinking I'm going to sample these. And then I was thinking, before when I did sampling, you would take one perfect sample. So you'd sit there for ages and you'd record loads of samples and you'd find the best one and then you'd loop it in the shortest amount of memory. And that would be the way to do it. So I'm imagining that this Optigan's probably built on the same principle. They record the best possible version of that instrument and then they get it confined to that kind of bandwidth and everything in the best possible way. But that's not the way we sample now, is it? We need to take like 20 different versions and then you do that round robin thing. So when you hit the key, it's constantly changing which sample it plays back, and that gives you variation. So do you put dud ones in now? Like the occasional kind of bum note or badly hit one? Is that...
No, that's really interesting. If you've watched, there's a series, Spitfire Audio, the guy... I've forgotten his name now. I did an interview with him. Gosh, I can't remember his name. That's really a bit of a senior moment. But he was talking about how he did that. They recorded some obscure Middle Eastern stringed instrument and just recorded all the sort of grotty hits as well and round robined it, and it just suddenly sounded alive and real, and it's certainly an approach. I did notice on the moving the sort of funky soul one, the loop wasn't quite right on the beats. It was sort of like, oh, it was just a little bit off. Could have done better in an Akai, I'm sure.
So when you look at the Optigan discs, if you hold them up to the light, you can see the waveforms, can't you? You can sort of see them. It's actually, it looks like so you can make, I don't know if I can't remember if I've actually seen this being done, but can you just like cut a piece of polythene, a little piece of, what would it be? I'm not sure. Fine. And draw on it with a Sharpie and make it play back?
It probably could.
I guess.
Probably could. I like that whole kind of Len-Lai animation with the audio track on the side. You know, where they kind of drew along where the SMPTE code was on celluloid, because it is actually a celluloid disc.
Celluloid, right.
And so they were kind of drawing along that and then using that as the audio for a cartoon or something like that.
Excellent.
It's fascinating. That whole world is really fascinating, actually. And I hats off to P, really, because he's the one who's kept this alive. And, I mean, orchestrons they do go for silly money. When we bought ours, Chris went, we paid that for that. It's kind of horrified. He loves the quirkiness of the Optigan, but the orchestron itself, which was used on Trans-Europe Express, the string line and stuff like that, they just go for mad money. And if you haven't got the discs with it, it's basically a doorstop. So the fact that you can go to, say, somebody like P and go, have you got any discs left? Have you got that flute?
Well, you can buy them. I think I was looking on. There's an Optigan, the Shoptigan, which is brilliantly tight. They're about kind of $100 or whatever. So they're not cheap, but you can only get them from certain places in it. But I just love the fact that it's just super niche, and there's a whole new load of demos out anyway. So that's what really caught my eye. Let's get to our competition. Why not? Let's interject here with a word from our sponsors. Obviously, iZotope have been talking about Neutron for a while, and here it comes. Neutron is the mix assisting plugin. Not only does it make suggestions, it analyzes the tracks in your DAW multi-track and recognizes a guitar or a bass or a vocal or whatever, and then makes suggestions based on what kind of level of processing you might want. But also something called the Mix Assistant, which basically gives you this masking meter, which is a really cool idea that allows you to visualize the clashing frequencies and then tackle them accordingly. It's not something you might necessarily hear with such clarity on your monitors, and you can identify those frequency collisions. And when you kind of get rid of them, the mix can clear up and there's a lot more space, so you can add those 50 extra tracks that you wanted to cram in there just in case. So they're providing a public service in many ways, but honestly, well worth checking out iZotope's Neutron. If you do mixes and you find it difficult, like I know many of us do try it out. iZotope.com/Neutron. You can get a restriction-free demo. Just head over to iZotope and check it out. Once again, we thank them for their sponsorship of the show. In fact, we have, from last week, we have a winner. The winner is somebody called Synth or Die, which is rather a classic name. That's a Twitter handle, Synth or Die. They tweeted the correct hashtags from last week. And also, Sonic Talk is boss, which I thoroughly approve of. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say so. I'm not sure I'd agree, but, it's nice to have that sentiment. So, Synth or Die, do get in touch. You will be sent a full copy of iZotope's Neutron. And we have another competition this week. So what you need to do is we're looking for the hashtag Smarter Mixes. That's one word, Smarter Mixes. And the hashtag Neutron, Neutron. You tweet that to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. So tweet the hashtag Smarter Mixes and the hashtag Neutron to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. And then you will be entered into the competition, and we can pick it up next week. But I should also mention no show next week because we're going to be in Frankfurt, which I think I might have mentioned at the top of the show. So just saying, we won't be here. I'll be in Germany. In fact, the whole crew will be in Germany. Enjoying the halls, the new halls. I'm not sure what the layout's going to be this week. You missing the notion of going to Frankfurt? I think the last time I saw you in Frankfurt must have been years ago, Dave. Not even going for the day?
It's when you forgot your money.
Oh, yeah. God, that was it.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. I don't miss paying stupid amounts of money for a hotel room for a few days. I don't miss that at all.
No.
But it's the people and...
Yeah, that's true. Well, we're going to do that for you, Dave. You can watch. We can't bring you the people, but we can bring you the content anyway, and you'll be able to see and hear what there is. I think it's going to be less heavy on synths, and we can focus more on sort of pro audio and some of the other interesting stuff as well. So I'm quite looking forward to that. Just be slightly out of the, because it's just modular synths, modular in a lot of the shows, and it's nice to be able to kind of broaden that. There's a lot of pro audio stuff there, and so we'll see what's going on. So that'll be interesting and fun. Let's see, what have we got next? Oh yeah, did you see this? Native Instruments have acquired this company called MetaPop, which is, this was on FactMag. I spotted this, factmag.com. And MetaPop is a kind of, it's like a remix platform where people will release stems, I guess in Native Instruments format, so it makes sense, there's a connection there. And then you can download those for free generally. They're, in many cases, they're also linked to competitions, and just fill your boots, upload a remix, and if it does well and gets picked up, the record company can sort of choose from a load of remixes they've had done, send it out, and you'll get 15% of the revenues that remix generates, which seems, certainly it serves two purposes. One is you get to have a go at remixes, you also get paid. The record company also find and discover new talents for remixes and don't have to pay anything up front, although presumably they pay something to MetaPop themselves. And it just seems to me to be quite an interesting model because, I mean, as we know, the only other previous way, certainly when I was doing remixing, the only way you could really do it was kind of bootleg effectively and then hope that somebody picked it up and the record company go, yeah, we like that, we'll do a deal. I don't know. Does this feel like progress, Gaz? I mean, is this something that is I'm guessing remixing is not something you spend a lot of your life doing at the moment?
No, but it is fascinating, isn't it? Because, through things like YouTube, it's become a platform for so many people doing user generated content, but it has created this takedown notice culture as well. So this seems like quite an interesting way of trying to bridge those two worlds, really, that of the enthusiastic kind of, I don't want to call them amateur because this stuff's often better than the real thing, but the unofficial ones. It's interesting, isn't it? Because Native Instruments obviously have probably their interest must
promoting stems and obviously getting all these remixes out to all the DJs who are looking for more content and having something a bit different and all that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, because I've been very interested in the stems idea, but I've always been a little bit concerned that those elements that you work so hard to do could just be ripped off by putting them in stems format. So I think anything that legitimizes this process is very interesting and very good, I think, for the content creator or the producers.
Yeah, so, absolutely. No, I know, Mark, I mean, you and I both kind of came up through the Atari sampler kind of remixing, acapellas kind of culture, didn't you? I mean, and there really wasn't a way. The only way you could do it was traditional. And now, I think one of the other things that they do is they also claim remixes. So if there are ones that are out there that are on YouTube or whatever, they can claim them to stop them from being taken down and then generate revenue from that, which is then split back between the original remixer. They get a cut, and then the either the label or the performer gets the cut. This could be kind of pretty cool.
I think it's potentially a really good idea. And the reason I think it's a really good idea is because if I was going to do a remix, I would try and differentiate. So I would try and do something that nobody else was doing, which hopefully other people out there with the same mindset will tackle other people's songs and try and do something completely different with them. And the first person that does something totally different that becomes popular is always the interesting one, isn't it? So I think, I don't know, in the 80s and the early 90s, we went through like a whole phase of people remixing all sorts of weird things and putting like drum beats on. Was it Thomas the Tank Engine or something?
That kind of stuff.
Like all those kind of things, which is interesting in itself. But then that generated like a whole kind of load of those sorts of things happening. Anybody who fancies themselves as a remixer should definitely be trying to do something different to anyone else so that they get noticed. Did I really just do that? And
air quotes is very 90s. It's perfect.
And I don't know. I think I think it's a good thing because it just means that the people that sort of sit around thinking, oh, I'd like to do a remix of that, I've had an idea, but you know what, there's no point doing it because if I do it, it will just get taken down, nobody will find it, blah, blah, blah. We'll actually have a platform that they can use and they'll be able to engage in it, put their idea out there, and you know, we should see some more diversity, I think, rather than
well, maybe so. I mean, and also
just in my 50s and thinking everything sounds the same.
I think you're right. I mean, if you just have a quick look, I mean, these are sort of tracks that are up there, and there are sort of numbers on the sort of claimed potential earning for these remixes for these people. That's like 50, 60 grand. And I guess it's similar to the takedown algorithm, the analysis that is happening on Google, except they're using it to monetize rather than just kind of ditch the stuff. I don't know, Dave, what do you think? I mean, do you think it's good? Because I mean, in some ways, obviously, if you're a remixer, you might not be getting that gig anymore because they'll just go, hella, I'll just stick it on MetaPop, and I'm sure we'll get something that's really good, and we won't have to pay a load of money for it. Or is the name part of the pool? You know, if the remix from Roger Sanchez or whoever's hot at the moment is part of the reason that it will be in the hands of the DJs in the first place.
Yeah, I love it when you get kind of new remixes come through. There's a guy whose work I'm quite obsessed with at the minute, a guy called Nikic. Yeah, I don't really know much about this world, I have to say. It's a bit of a kind of, it's an odd world. But what was really strange is when the subjects popped through my letterbox yesterday, I was actually sat with a musician who's incredibly well connected, who has done a mashup, which is actually superb. He has the ear of all of the record companies, but he sent this to one of the record companies involved in one of the artists that he's done the mashup of, and it's all gone very quiet. And we were basically talking about, you know, how difficult clearances for things like mashups really are for, you know, even from a record company perspective, if they've got to go to another label or another publisher and start dealing with that. So yeah, it was kind of pertinent that this turned up, because it was like, oh, I wonder how this is going to affect that, because the mashup scene is huge, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's true as well. I mean, I guess that comes from DJ culture. I mean, they also do a load of competition. So, you know, that labels will say remix competition. They'll, you know, let's say, what's his, Carl Craig, and it'll, you know, $100 and a bunch of Native Instruments software, Tractor Control S5, you know, so it's a kind of promotional platform as well. So it seems like a kind of win-win. I mean, and it's quite, I'm trying to think of the last time Native Instruments were in the news for acquiring another company. So I don't think I've ever heard of that. So it's obviously something that links to
also
them.
There's a really good a YouTube video from this T-Burn Burnett, which I really like, and he talks about the whole DMCA issue, which I'm acutely aware of, and how all of these kind of new what are they called, disruptor companies generally remove value from a scene rather than add value to it. And actually, this was the first time where I went, oh, actually, this is something that actually genuinely could add value.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I guess the next logical stage is some way of figuring out a way to kind of to do the same thing for software, you know, for plugins or whatever. So, you know, maybe they can figure out what's being used on each track and take like 1 or 2% off the revenue to distribute amongst the people who made the software and has actually been maybe pirated or something. I guess that's a very different dynamic and different set of algorithms, and perhaps won't work quite the same way. But, you know, there is a market for that out there, isn't there? And it's not the same as old school DRM and the sort of the very kind of hard line approach that means, you know, you can't listen to X on Y and then B, and then, you know, it's just, sorry, you can't listen to it on your phone as well as your home stereo because you don't have the, you don't want that. But I mean, just a way, using technology to actually distribute the rights that should have been generated is technology put to good use, I think. So yeah, it looks like it could be an interesting exercise, and maybe, you know, there's more mileage in that as well. I don't know, but yeah. And also, I suppose, you know, you've also got because Native Instruments are so heavily associated with both plugins in terms of production, but also the DJ side with Tractor and all the control and what have you, then they get to a win-win. And do you think that maybe there's the concept of a brand, you know, label, like a Moog electronic music label? I mean, a lot of these people are doing this kind of thing anyway, but I mean, it seems like this is probably something that's going to happen even more. Do they call it divergence or convergence? I don't know, Gaz. Can you remember which it is? Convergence is coming together, divergence is going apart, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm like a pupil just been singled out.
Yeah. Go to the back of the class.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't my intention at all. Anyway, it's an interesting idea, and I think it feels like it's all lined up to do good things rather than just make it more difficult for everybody. So I like that. Oh yeah, anything like this ever happened to you? We've all done it. No. I'm not convinced that wasn't a setup, but it made me laugh a lot. This was via let me see, who was it via? The Drum Network, who are on Facebook. It just sort of came. In fact, they got loads of really good drumming videos if you're just into watching people playing drums and doing cool things, technique and all that sort of stuff. But I just thought, oh God, you know what? I'll tell you what it reminded me of, Gaz, is that time when you were pulling on your headphone lead and your mic stand fell over and we lost the key on the... And I was thinking, you know, but those sort of things happen. I mean, it's always when the cable is attached to something and you haven't quite got enough length on it. I'm just... Aside from that, have you ever had one of those moments when you've just turned and gone, oh no, there it goes?
Gosh, I'm sure loads of times.
There's nothing special occasion about it at all. Yeah.
I think I try and put them out of my mind. I mean, obviously the time when I pulled down the microphone array behind me on the show. I mean, I had these in-ears in, you know, I've talked about this many times, but so
and you
I
didn't hear it. We just saw it happen.
Everyone else heard. I didn't see it happen. Everyone else heard it. You cut to me. I was totally oblivious to it. I turned around and then saw everything, all the chaos behind me. Oh well.
But I mean, live though, it's very. I mean, because you have to put, you know, you get those. When I've been there where you've gone to a gig and it's maybe a small gig and somebody's just leaning their guitar up against something and you're just going, no, get a proper stand because it's just going to fall over. It's going to fall. You know, those sort of things are important, right? I mean, I'm sure you probably do that at least.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I'm taking out a much sturdier stand on the tour this time because actually the bass I'm using is just got such an odd shaped body. It's you couldn't even stand it up; it would fall over. But I mean, slightly different, but sort of live story. I might have told this story before. I'll try and do it very, very quickly. But it was it was my band Rocket Gold Star back in 2000. We did what was considered the first ever silent gig, and that had Roland sort of helped us out terrifically with it and provided V drums, and the whole thing was silent, and we had loads of headphones. This has become quite common with silent disco, but we were definitely a pioneer with this thing. But I mention it because it was quite a radical idea at the time, and we did a press show first at 7:00, and there was a terrific turnout, and we had a lot of national coverage for it, and it was exciting times. And the opening tune, we kind of extended out the intro to make it all ambient and to sort of. They were using the VSS. Is it VSS?
Yeah, 3D stuff.
3D stuff, and they were like kind of panning stuff around, and you know, and when the part that you're playing live is being panned around your head, it's pretty disorientating. But the song delivered like a sort of big payload on the chorus, and that's where the drums and the big distorted guitar came in, and we're just building up to that moment, and I was singing lead vocal and playing bass. I was just coming up to that big moment and all this expectation, and I stood forward with like gusto to do the big thing, and I stood on the cable and I pulled my headphone out.
So you didn't hear anything apart from kind of
total silence. I had, you know, it's like pulling your lead out is bad enough, you know, but so
when it's the only monitoring, yeah.
I got nothing. Just cut off, just at that. But at that precise moment as well. So I mean, yes, sorry, slightly different story, but just one of those moments. But when things do go wrong like that particular instance, then we had to actually stop and start again. You do develop a much better relationship with the audience. They kind of I don't know. Well, that was
they
my
empathise and they want it to. Yeah, I suppose
and
that
then
makes sense.
they want it to work. Yeah, it's like less of a this is a weird thing. It actually brought it together. So it
well,
wasn't
that's good. I know, Mark. You toured for a long time with Duran's. I mean, I'm guessing most of the time, your job and the crew's job is to make sure nothing like that ever happens.
Indeed, and for my whole life, my father has said to me, "Mark, slow down, Mark. Think about what you're doing." And I am the man who breaks things. And yes, I was repairing a guitar pedal yesterday, and it had like a long potentiometer. One of the potentiometers on there is longer than all the other ones, so the knob doesn't go on properly. So I thought, if I just saw the end of that knob off really gently with a hacksaw, that will work, because then the knob will be lower, won't it, right? And then I thought, oh, God, that'll take ages. You know what? I'll just use the angle grinder. So I got the angle grinder. It had a paddle wheel on it, and I'm holding the pedal, and I'm going, and I'm thinking, be really, really, really careful. And then the pedal slipped in my hand, and the paddle wheel went into the top of the pedal. So it's now got a very nice kind of, relic stroke road-worn look to it.
A credit card slot.
No, not quite that bad, but I did take a lot of paint off, and then I was like, oh, okay. Motorbikes are worse, though. I gave a motorcycle frame to one of my neighbours in Biggleswade, and I said, "Don't worry, I don't mind bringing it round. I'll just chuck it in the back of the car, and I'll pop round and see you." And it was one of those Honda pressed steel, like kind of motorbike. And I opened the back of the car, put it on the back seat of the car, and I thought, if I drive really gently, it will be fine. And this big Range Rover came round the corner just as I was about to pull out, flashed his lights and beeped to let me out. So I kind of thought, oh, quick, pull away fast. Pulled away nice and quick, and it went straight through the back window of the car. And I remember looking in the mirror and watching it happen, and there's nothing I could do about it. And just, new back window.
That reminds me of one of those.
My kind of my good deed for the day turned into having to go off to Bedford and get a new bloody back window for the car and all that sort of stuff. So I
damn,
I don't know. And I always have that voice in my head that goes, don't do it this way, do it the other way. And then I think, no, it'll be all right. And then it never is.
Dave, I'm guessing there must be one. I mean, you've got all of this stuff around. I mean, obviously it's very mostly. I've been there and I've seen things stood on end and those sort of things. Does that happen? That the inevitable oops crash?
I did, I had one not that long ago, actually. It wasn't here, it was down at the lockup. I was lending Oliver Davis the Imp2 controller, and we put the .com in storage for a little bit, and the Chamberlain M4, you remember that four-manual behemoth that is still being renovated? The flight case for that is just immensely heavy, and what we've done is put the base of it, which has got the wheels, tilted that up against something, and I opened the first door to the lockup, and everything was fine, and then I opened the second door. I had taken the modular, the two 960s, the sequencers out, and put that behind me. And when I opened the second door, it just went bang, and those huge, great road flight case wheels just smashed straight into the front of the 960. I thought, I was nearly in tears. You should have heard the expletives. But it just caught it at an angle where actually it sheared off one of the sequence step knobs totally and missed everything else.
Wow.
So it was like definitely someone was smiling, looking down on me that day. My favourite one is obviously Chris with putting the wheels on Keith Emerson's Hammond organ and not telling him, and then he obviously threw that off the front of the stage by mistake. But mine live was where I was in this quite a big band, and there was this brilliant percussion player, and he was also a great guitarist. And it was like, right, so instead of playing percussion during this part of the song, you're going to walk over, you're going to pick your guitar up. And he was such an antagonistic little sod. He was, no, I'm not doing that. So Dale and I sat with him and just made sure that he was totally rehearsed and he was comfortable playing his guitar solo, because he kept going, I don't feel comfortable enough. Anyway, he did it. And we were at this gig, brilliant gig actually, Subterranea, if anyone remembers that. It was a brilliant venue. He turned round. He went and picked his guitar up off the stand and turned round and hit my cymbal stand. And the cymbal came down and just guillotined his lead. And he just looked at me and going, I'm not doing it now, am I?
No.
And that was it.
Clearly not. Ouch. Those are, I've got a very similar one actually about I I may have told this story before, but when there was a recording studio being built in a club in Bath, and they had clients coming in, and they were, the guy in charge of the buying of all the equipment was a real sort of auction head. So he'd buy it from, something would come from New York and it would all get shipped into Heathrow. And I had to go to Heathrow to the freight depot and pick up like a whole bunch of stuff that had to be back there by that night because it was going in the studio and the session was starting tomorrow. It was their first paying client, and I had a pair of massive JBL studio monitors. And I had them in the back of a Vauxhall, and I was like, "Look, the traffic's really." I remember him saying to me, "Look, I'll pay the speeding fine. It's got to be here." So I was driving really fast, and doing, which is not when this actually happened. So I had this massive pair of JBL monitors in the back of the. I think it was a Sierra Estate, and I was just coming off the ramp onto on the motorway. And there was a bit of traffic. Then somebody pulled away, and I accelerated, and both the speakers just slid back down the car, popped the back. Had the same thing, smashed the back windscreen, and I was like 250 miles away from Bath, so I'd had to drive all the way back. But then what I did is I went, and I opened the door to go, oh bloody hell, look at that, and all the glass fell into the lock inside because it had fallen inside the door, and then I couldn't shut the thing again, so I had all this stuff in the back of the car that could just slide out, and I had to go and find some rope and tie it all up and stuff because the bits of glass had fallen into the actual lock mechanism, and so and then it probably started raining. Anyway, I think I made it back, but yeah, that was a hell of a day. But those I've not had. Usually, you get things happening here because obviously what tends to happen is we've got lots of cables. This room is in a state of flux a lot of the time. We've got cameras on stands and things, and often, or not often, but more often than it should, you get that kind of and the tripod is just going and you're just like, I mean, fortunately our set of cameras at the moment, they're quite old and they're not terribly expensive, but you just don't want that stuff to happen, do you? But I'm trying to think. I don't think I've had I've done the plugging the wrong power supply and just the puff of smoke thing, but I don't think I've had a kind of one of those, oh no, and watch it happen in slow motion things. Fortunately, that's the worst though, isn't it? It really is.
I did the power supply thing on a pig nose the other day, and I plugged a little USB adapter thing into it, which I thought should work with it, and loads of smoke came pissing out the back of it, and I was thinking, oh my God, okay, I've fried it. So I unplugged the external power supply, put it back on battery, and it still worked.
Well, I suppose, the transformer might have gone.
Well, no, I think it was a capacitor. So I opened it up and found something that looked a bit melted and changed that, and it still seems to work fine. So.
Hooray. Well, that's good news. It's nice when you can fix that kind of stuff. When
70s technology, so it's made better.
Yeah, no surface mount. You can get a hold of it all. Let's see. I don't know if we've got. I think we're probably. Oh yeah. Did you see? I just wanted to show this picture because I just love the look of that. You see on Matrix Synth, it's just literally the mixer and the speakers from the System-100 Roland, and it's one of those. I mean, it's a beautiful photograph, nicely posed. And I thought, I like. Oh, it's a bit scratchy there actually, but I would love.
It's one
of those synths I'd like.
What's really interesting about that is that the two main people that I've had career with, my brother Adam and Nick Rhodes, both own that mixer.
Wow.
So Adam's got one, Nick's got one as well. Nick's got the whole System-100, the little system, the 101 keyboard, and then the mixer, the synth that goes behind the keyboard, and he's got the speakers. I think Adam's got the sequencer as well. So, but it's kind of weird that those, two, they're not connected in any way. They don't really, Adam and Nick don't really know each other that well. But
they're connected by their love of the system.
They're connected by their love of the System-100, yeah.
So, Dave, I can see you're perusing a rather specialist magazine there.
Yes. VCO. Look, that's... Hang on.
London VCO. Issue number 1.
Yeah, that was the London Synth Centre magazine. Do you remember Chase, the guys who used
Vaguely.
They used to mark up the retail to an absurd thing and then discount it back to the retail and go, look at this as a bargain. He was quite a character. In fact, he runs a carpet business now in... Anyway, yeah. No, I was just looking at the price. This was one of the first synths I ever bought, the 100, 101. And we've always wanted the kind of full set. In fact, it's quite an interesting little nerdy story. Roland were distributed by a company in somewhere in like Sweden or Scandinavia, but all Jorgensen, and that all kind of went a bit pear-shaped. And Gordon Reed writes about it in his History of Roland, and they basically needed to... It could have been they went down owing Roland Japan loads and loads of money, and it could have been the end of Roland Japan. So they dropped all of their 100s on... I'm trying to think. I think it was ABC Music and various other music stores. This is like going back to like 79. And you could pick up the keyboard and the module that attaches to it for £199 each.
Oh.
So me and a friend went up there and tried to clean them out. Yeah, I mean, it was still a reasonable sum of money. But if you think that, the Wasp was £199 a year later... it was brilliant, and it was a great keyboard, and it was used obviously by Marc's people and Human League, and Martin Ware I think still takes one out and does these kind of talk throughs of being boiled, or I'm pretty sure that is. So yeah, great synth, got a really nice.
Lovely. It's just aesthetically very pleasing, isn't it? That's the thing I like about it.
The whole system's really nice, but I don't know, those speakers are a bit kind of like, I'd like it all except those speakers. The sequencer's brilliant.
Well, I don't know. Is there something, Gaz, that you kind of you covet from that sort of that you just cosmetically? It may not necessarily be for sonic reasons.
Oh yeah, it's dead cool. What it was making me think though was how like the IRA range, how they've expanded that with the MX1 mixer and they've
gone for the look, haven't they?
They've gone for this consistent look, and with the sort of Marmite green LED look. But I wonder what we're looking at now, more than 35 years' time or something, whether we'd be looking back at those and seeing them as very much of their time. Because that's what these have got a very pleasing 70s aesthetic about them, haven't they? Which I'm totally enamored with the 70s, as if that would be... I love the chunkiness of all of that. I just think it's really nice. I mean... Yeah. The modern stuff tends to not be chunky, does it? It tends to be sleek and compact.
Yeah, well, it's down to sort of where shipping logistics, storage logistics, whether you can make the packaging small enough to make it cheaper to get squeeze an extra 100 into the container. I mean, I guess all of that comes into it now, and that's become refined and a finer art over the years. And it does mean that there's a certain homogeny to things, just purely because, if people use a specific kind of pot for knobs, for synths, then those will, by definition, become cheaper because more people buy those kind of things. So that's the one that everybody uses, or the knob caps, or whatever. And having that difference is something that's... I don't know if you saw, there was an interesting piece, Cuckoo put a sort of documentary with the guys from Bastel. And, they just make everything out of wood, which is probably not the cheapest way of doing it, but it differentiates their stuff stylistically. Even though it's just Eurorack, it still looks really cool and has a definite sort of different vibe to it. And I think that's brilliant, all of that stuff, and it's just not so common.
If we're talking of knobs...
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, if we're talking of knobs, I just got to say something which I think is absolutely bloody brilliant. I bought a second-hand Novation X-Station recently, and it had a missing knob. And I thought, where the hell am I going to get one of these? And so I emailed Focusrite, and they said, oh, don't worry, we'll send you one. What's your address? And they just sent me one for free, which I think is absolutely brilliant. I mean, that's like a 10-year-old synth. That is customer support at its best.
That is, and it's resulted in a happy customer, and
Indeed.
That's the way it works. Excellent. I think we're probably about due to knock it on the head. I just want to say it's been excellent fun as usual. I'm so glad that you all managed to make it. Once again, I should say we're not having a show next week. Before I go, I should also say don't forget the competition. If you want to win Isotopes Neutron, we're looking for the hashtag Smarter Mixes, one word, and the hashtag Neutron to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. That's the hashtag Smarter Mixes and the hashtag Neutron, Smarter Mixes, Isotope and Sonicstate. Gaz, you said
what about MusikMesse rumours? We haven't even touched on that.
To be honest, I haven't heard anything at all.
So we have speculated about this in the past, how things like Superbooth and maybe other manufacturers just doing independent product launches has kind of taken some of the expectation out of these big shows, perhaps.
Yes, I think there is a degree of truth in what you say, and I also think that Messe has for a long time been just sort of not quite so international, just because it's so expensive. I mean, it's not necessarily their fault. It's just that the city is expensive. It's quite close to NAMM, so and that need to be in both places is perhaps not so necessary. I mean, it's still a massive show. I mean, it's huge, but it feels more like it's more a national kind of thing. But there's a lot of international stuff there, but just not quite as much as you would get at NAMM, which is California and in January just after Christmas, which is nicer to go to than generally Frankfurt in March.
So I was just wondering whether any of the big manufacturers who didn't launch anything at NAMM, and there was a little bit of speculation maybe they would be releasing in Messe. Just wondering in the chat room maybe there could be some things thrown in.
I don't know about that. I mean, I did email Roland yesterday, and Roland aren't going to be there this year.
Whoa!
So that's I know. I think Korg. Synth manufacturers. There's a lot of other people besides, obviously. So I think for us, we're going to focus. We'll be able to focus a bit more on pro audio and just a different layer and strata of stuff rather than just more of the same synths and more of the same company. So in some ways, it's worth us going because we'll see all of that stuff and it'll give us some time to wander around and have a look at it. But yeah, I take your point. But next week starts on the 5th, I think. We're going to be there from the 4th. I think that's right.
I found a thing that relates to the previous topic.
Oh, okay.
If anybody wants to buy a Roland System-100 102 expander, the Vemia auction, Vintage Electronics Musical Instruments Auctions in the UK, is just about to happen, and there's one in the auction.
Vemia.co.uk.
Yeah.
Right, I just have a look.
Item number 16704, I think.
Yeah, Vemia.co.uk. That's the place. I'd have to have a look at that, but
I
bet that'll go for
on there.
There always is. I remember that always used to be a really big happening event, didn't it? And you get your Will Gregory's and your Pete and your Adrian Utley's and all the people that are into synths would all be kind of hovering around, going, "Oh, I don't know. I'm looking at this. What should I not?"
It's still an exceptionally good way to sell stuff if you want to sell stuff, because first of all, you've got the right audience, and the percentage that the website take is considerably lower than eBay. And I don't know, it just seems like a good thing to me.
I don't know. You shouldn't have told Dave though. I can see Dave's got that glazed look. He's got. Have you not got a reminder in your calendar for when it starts every quarter or every 6 months or whatever they do it?
No, I get the mails.
I think it starts next week or something, doesn't it? Or maybe it starts. Yeah, very soon. Anyway,
let me have a look. I can't see at the moment. It's just a sea of text.
This one says it ends on the 15th of April 2017.
Okay, so it's probably...
And it was created on the 26th of March, but it hasn't got any bids on it yet, so I don't think... and the bidding starts at... Oh, my God.
Here we go. I found the page. Uh-oh. Russian synth hi-fi. Oh, look at all of this stuff.
Oh, I like the look of that. What's that? Is that a LIDAR?
That's a hi-fly. Russian synth hi-fi. So what's next? Oh, dear. Now we start. Oh, chips. Yeah, Peter Forrest, he did the A to Z of synthesizers, which is for many people is that sort of Bible guide of pretty much all synths, and he's a top chap, and he still continues to do this. He's a really, valuable member of the community, and I hope he does well out of it, because he should. He's a top chap. Anyway, I think I was wrapping the show up now, but thanks for that. That's definitely, I'm glad we know. So Vemia.co, you have to do www.vemia.co.uk. You must have the www in, because otherwise it won't load. So do check that out if you're into buying. They ship internationally and do all of that stuff, but just be careful, folks. It's very easy to spend a lot of money very quickly.
Yeah.
I guess for some of you who are looking to get rid of some tax at this time of year, it might be extremely dangerous. Anyway, that's it. Oh yeah, I wanted to say I did this track. I'll play out actually, because I did this track. We're going to be releasing our first commercial Max for Live synth with the guys at Metafunction, and I started putting together a track which just only uses instances of that apart from the drums, and that's going to be coming along in April sometime after the Messe probably.
Is that Phelan?
Yeah, that's Phelan.
He's bloody brilliant.
He is brilliant.
He's so clever.
Exactly. So hopefully we'll have that. But I'll play out with that track. And thank you very much, Mark, for joining us. Been a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
And also Mr. Dave Spears, thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you very much.
And Gaz Williams, thank you for joining us too.
Yeah, come to the Pop Dungeon shows if anyone can, because they're going to be great.
Thank you very much. Okay, and that's it for this week. And we will see you next time. And I'll leave you with a bit of this.